episode 27, Crazy Damn Canadians. I am so happy to have you gentlemen in the studio today. I'm just going to say this right now. Community leaders, you guys couldn't exemplify that any more perfectly, not just this year, but for the past few years on what you've done, what you've brought to the table. Ivan, Wes, welcome to Crazy Damn Canadians. Thank you for being here.
It's an honor to be here on Crazy Damn Canadians, and thank you for that introduction. And
thank you so much.
And
you know, it's just I watched quite a few episodes. Being on the show, I said, I wish I was on that show. I say a few things and to kind of meet and greet the community, because we have a story to tell, and it was just it was about unity and community coming together. It's not about us; it's about community, being able to share the gifts and talents that we have. And it's just to make this a better place to be.
And you guys definitely have a story to tell. And we're going to get into not just one, but many stories in this episode. But can I just say this right now? For the community leader, the Citizen of the Year award, are we able just to hand that to the two of you right now? Can we call up the PG Community Foundation and say, we already have the winners this year. No need to do any kind of nomination process. Wes and Ivan, I'm saying it right now, Citizens of the Year. Let's make that award happen. And we also have our executive producer in the studio, Selin Alpe, who's also a former Citizen of the Year from the PG Community Foundation. So can we just say hi, Selin? Now I have to ask,
yes.
How did you guys meet?
Well, I was on the Arts Council. I was on the Arts Council for about 8 years. And we were hosting an event down at the Civic Center, our annual fundraiser. And Wes was in there and he said, who's that good looking guy? I said, get in the picture over here. And then so I said, one day I see myself doing something with you. And he said, what do you mean by that? And I said, I just see us doing something together. I said, there's just it was just, inside yourself when you meet someone, you made that connection. Our hearts were in the right place. And at the right time, we just connected. And we bumped into each other, a couple times, and all of a sudden, we seen each other at the hospital and said, let's do it.
yeah, definitely. We met at the Studio 2880.
Yeah.
Ivan approached me, and he's very, very welcoming. And I knew of Ivan in the community, and the good work he does to help others. And he just right away said, I'm going to take you around Studio 2880 and introduce you to everybody. And he did that, and we kind of rebonded there, and we had a few days of getting pictures, like he said, with I think it was a cake. There was a cake being given at that 2880.
That's right. Get in the picture.
Was it 100-year or?
I think it was the 50-year cake.
50-year cake.
Yeah.
So we were part of that with like Lynn Hall being in there and a bunch of the council. So it was an honor to be just part of something in the community, and meeting Ivan was amazing, right? And then time went on, and I believe it would be the pandemic, right? So
yeah.
What a foreshadow.
Yeah.
When you first met and you could actually feel that the two of you would collaborate on something big. Mm-hmm. And you were about to mention the pandemic. And I think that's where a lot of people might recognize you from, is when the pandemic first arrived and rocked this world in March of 2020, for 47 consecutive days, you gentlemen, as well as your supporting cast, your team, and people from the community, every single night, 47 days outside the hospital, the University Hospital of Northern British Columbia, and you were doing drum circles, and you were actually gaining inspiration and hope for patients and first responders and healthcare workers, 47 days straight. And if you do the math, that is almost the equivalent of 7 weeks. 7 times 7, 49. So you're 2 days short of 7 weeks. And when I think about that, it's imagine starting something tonight. Anybody listening or watching in this podcast, imagine starting something new tonight, and you do it for almost 7 weeks straight every single night. That's remarkable, gentlemen. Did you know that you do it for that long when you first started?
Well, when I first got up, I started drumming with the PG Paraders, right? And it was a time where nobody knew what was going on. People were scared to touch door handles, and we had nurses inside. They were all watching, and the Paraders were going every night, and they wanted us to bang pots and pans outside of our houses. So being a traditional drummer with the Kazakhstan drummers, I thought, no, I did try to do the pots and pans outside my house, and it just didn't have that feel. And I believe in the Creator, and the Creator directs me in different ways. He says, go to the hospital, bring your drum. And at first it said make some noise. It's not making noise. It's the heartbeat, right? But at the same time, it's making noise for all the nurses that are inside and doctors, frontliners throughout the community, right? So started drumming, and the first week, I brought my mother down there when we were recording, and we, all of a sudden, Stephen DeBoss and Ivan came down and started smudging, and it's just there was the whole world was shut down, and there was no better place to be than at the Prince George UHNBC Hospital, supporting the pandemic, supporting the frontliners and the healthcare workers. I mean, it hadn't hit Prince George at that time, but nobody knew nothing, right? So we were still in the unknowns, a lot of fear, a lot of people in fear, right? So to stand up with our drums and our to smudge and sage and those powerful prayers for 47 days in a row was an honor. Yeah. And
it's not just the 47 days and then you called it quits. After 47 consecutive days, you moved to doing it every single Monday night at 6 p.m.
Well, I remember looking at Wesley and I said, do we still continue? And I was look up in the sky. And I did a little study on pandemics and past history, the history of some plagues and pandemics. I said, we're going to help you for a while. I said, so we're going to go for as long as we have to. Mm-hmm. The people need support, the people need love and care, and they're looking to us for guidance. When I brought my drum out, it was an honor drum from my family that was flown from Duncan, and it was there, and I picked it up, and I just grabbed all the tools that I have of the indigenous world to help support the community, and that was bringing up the smudge, bringing up all the sweetgrass and tobacco and cedars, and mixing it all up, and said okay, and said okay, bring the prayers and bring the smudge. And just work, side by side, and we just kept going, and the need became, you could see that the need in people would start to come forward, and it just said, can you pray for me? Can you pray for me? Can you help me out? And then help us, and it was just we couldn't stop because the need was so great, and the fear and anxiety. And to know that we and the people would come just to know that they had they could talk about it and release themselves, release their emotions and share some tears, and to know that they weren't alone, and none of us were, and we needed each other too as well. We all needed each other during this time, because we didn't know, none of us knew. And we had to stay together, and it was the Creator brought us together to support the community in a good way, and to support the nurses and the frontliners, and anybody who needed a hand. We were there. We held our hand open, and the way that circle was never closed. That circle has always been open.
Absolutely, and it was Shirley Bond who recognized the two of you at Parliament in Victoria probably less than 2 weeks ago, and she said it best, I feel, where she said that you may never realize, the two of you, she single-handedly pointed out yourself, Wes, and you, Ivan, in front of all her colleagues and said, these two difference makers may never recognize how many people they truly reached through what they did for those first 47 days and then the 20 months in total since this pandemic arrived. But that number of people that you've touched and that you've blessed with what you've done is incredibly substantial. It is a long list of people. And to me, it's not just maybe the frontline workers or the healthcare staff or the patients, but also the people that you attract to these healing circles, to these drum circles, who come out and take part, because life can be heavy sometimes, and everyone's going through things. And from when I've been there and witnessed it, people that are joining that drum circle, it's powerful for them as well, and you never know what they might be going through.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. To help, you said it, the healing circle, right? And in the past, I drummed in many different situations throughout the city, but one of the most powerful drummings that I felt in my heart was when I was in the hospital drumming for individuals that were sick at that time, going through whatever medical issues they had, and then to be outside, at that hospital with that invisible field with the healthcare workers, and they were there, like they weren't working, they were working their butts off, short on PPE, not knowing what's going on, risking going to work for 12-hour shifts and then going back to their families, not knowing if they're going to bring this virus back home. for us, just to be out there and to see them in there, them sending us signs saying we see you, us out there drumming away saying we see you. People were building signs. We were doing parades. We had all the Prince George had all the volunteers, like the firefighters, and all these huge parades going on. So we all worked off each other. The paraders and the drummers worked together, right? The end of the 47 days straight, we made some themes. Like we tried to make some comfort and some love. Like we had May the 4th, and we had people come in Star Wars outfits, right? We had Dr. Bonnie Henry Day because she was going hard. She stood up, a leader to this pandemic as a medical advisor, and in front of the TV every day telling people. We did Dr. Bonnie Henry Day. We had a jersey night for hockey jerseys. I wore the Prince George Spruce Kings jersey, right? But we had all these nights of the last 4 days, right, of the straight days, to just bring some, I don't know, it was just some more peace and some more level headed to this, and to show the nurses inside that we can still be a community outside and not be in that fear and that anxiety. So
that sense of connection.
Yeah.
Being able to be connected. You have the walls on the outside. And the institution, and hospitals are really cool because, and churches. There's a church across the street. There's a place of healing and spiritual wellness. People come to a hospital to get healing and wellness. So having all those energies, having the indigenous piece, brought the connection. And it was, and it was also the way of bringing two worlds together, and that's where it was starting to lead. Bringing the optics where here's indigenous people, working side by side, with their healing methodology, and with the healthcare center. With the healthcare center, the hospital, and the nurses coming out and saying thank you, and the frontline staff coming out and saying thank you. You have the ambulance drivers coming by and putting their lights on, saying thank you. And we're waving our drums and banging our drums and singing songs and to say thank you.
Yeah.
For helping our people too as well.
Gratitude being manifested everywhere.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And paradoxically,
yeah.
I've talked to a lot of people that almost wish they could go back to those inaugural days of the pandemic, because that's when it felt like everyone had each other's back, and we didn't know what it was going to be. We didn't know if this pandemic was going to have a mortality rate of 25%. We didn't know if it was going to kill our grandparents. We were in a different position then, where everyone had each other's back and everyone was looking out for each other. Fast forward 20 and a half months later, it's very contentious now. It's a different environment, and it's sad to see. But you do talk to a lot of people that almost miss the early days of the pandemic, where it just seemed everyone was more nice and caring and grateful and supportive. UNBC just had an event, Inspiring Women Among Us, and I know that you mentioned Dr. Henry in a post that you did on Facebook, as well as a lot of other women who you find inspiring. You actually got to meet Dr. Bonnie Henry. What was that like?
Oh, well, it was exactly June 22nd, 2021, and I just finished getting my second dose of the Pfizer vaccine, and we heard Dr. Bonnie Henry was up here to do some conferences and show some support for the northern nurses, the medical staff and the nurses up here, and I didn't have a drum, and I always have a drum in my vehicle, right? And I just got my shot, and I got out, and a friend of mine, Kat, got hers at the same time, and she said, yeah, she's inside there. So I was like, okay, well, this is going to happen. Dr. Bonnie Henry's here. I just got my second vaccine shot. I knew there was a drum inside the Two Rivers Gallery. It was a Shirley Babcock drum, and it was on the wall, and I've loved this drum since 2880 Day, and I knew it was in there, so I went in there, and I called Shirley Babcock and asked to use the drum. She said, yeah, for sure, as long as, just let her know it's my drum in a way, right? So, but anyways, I went outside, started drumming, and Constable Craig Douglas, or Corporal Craig Douglas, came out, and we kind of asked people like if they could find Dr. Bonnie Henry, and he came out and said, are you here in peace? And I said, yes, I'm here in peace. It was kind of funny the way he said it, and then so he went back inside. He came back in and out a few times trying to find Dr. Bonnie Henry. Finally he said, yeah, she's just finishing up some work and you can sing some songs for her. So we waited outside, kept drumming around, getting the vibe and the heartbeats going. And eventually she came out in her nice yellow dress and with her mask on and very polite and calm and kind and safe like she always is. And we had a conversation. I let the women ahead of me introduce themselves, and then I introduced myself and gave her a choice of 3 songs that we could sing for her, and she picked the grandmother song, Ni Mama. It's about prayers, gatherings, and a song that was written for Leo McGillicuddy's mother. And we sang that song for her. We formed a little circle with the staff that she had there and a few drummers that stuck around, and the other people that knew we were there, and we sang Ni Mama and had a conversation, and I brought up the opiate crisis going on, and I said thank you for bringing it up, because she had got emotional a little bit before that on TV about it, and as she's walking away, we said we love you, and she's, you could just see her eyes getting wet, and it was a very, I believe in the Creator. And when me and Ivan did one of our first interviews with CKPG, we said, they said, how long are you going to do it? We said, until we get a vaccine.
That's right.
And here we are. We got the vaccine came out. The 3 of them came out, and I got my second dose. And it was just, I think it was an act of the Creator to be able to honor Dr. Bonnie Henry that day. Honor ourselves for honor. Unfortunately, my brother wasn't there, but he was there in spirit.
I was busy doing other
definitely.
things behind the scene.
Oh, he was there.
So
he was.
Yeah. So we, we had a moment, and that inspired me to ask the community to help pay for that, to purchase that drum, and I have that drum today still. And we got Shirley Babcock to do a replica drum, and we sent it off, and she received the replica drum. So me and Dr. Bonnie Henry have 2 of the same drums, and it's a connection, right? And I hope she has it up on her wall, and she pray. That brings some spirit and prayer and some stress relief for everything she's done. So I have a lot of respect for her, and definitely. It was an amazing day, right? So.
Unforgettable, to say the least, but also something that, how do you plan that, right? Since the start of the pandemic, 47 straight days outside UHNBC, and all of a sudden you're getting your second vaccination shot, and Dr. Bonnie Henry's there.
Not an hour later, I'm drumming for her.
And it just so happens the clinic is at the Prince George Civic Center, which is right across from Two Rivers Art Gallery, where there just happens to be a drum just sitting there waiting for you.
Yes. And it's speaking out, right? And it just immediately came to me, because I was like, I don't have a drum. Let's get her going. And it happened, right? So it was very honorable to do that for her that day, and she's still going strong, right? So Inspiring Women, we drummed up at the UMBC to start it off last week on the Wednesday, and definitely put her at the top of my list. Well, my mother, number 1. Kathy Ferguson, number 1, my mama, and then Dr. Bonnie Henry, and so many other women that have inspired me throughout the years.
Absolutely, especially in the north. We have so many incredible female leaders in northern British Columbia, spread throughout Prince George and the region. We're really fortunate to have that kind of leadership and the kind of inspiration that comes from these
20 years of Shirley Bond, right? And so many more.
Just, you couldn't ask for more of a fierce advocate of the north. And I always compare the politicians that we're lucky to have in Prince George, and that's almost an oxymoron, lucky to have politicians, but we are in northern British Columbia and Prince George in particular, because they actually feel like regular community citizens, right? Yep. Where if you were to look at, I guess, down south of the border or the 49th parallel, it's a different story. But in here, like, we have politicians that you can just tell they believe in the north, they believe in the people that call this place home, and they want the best for us through their advocacy. So it's really remarkable to see. I have a question for you, Ivan.
Yes.
Let's talk about where you grew up. Let's talk about what childhood was like and your adolescence as well, because I actually don't know. I know your background, Cree, but I don't know where you grew up.
I grew up in Prince George, BC. I was actually, how do I start this? I was born and raised here in I was born in 65, and it was I was baptized in a church in Giscombe, in the old church, and I went back there a few years ago, just a short few years ago, to go see the church. I hopped the fence, and it was a bunch of brush and stuff, and opened the door, and I looked in there, and I went, wow. I was baptized there when I was 6 months old, and I went, this is so cool. And I met and I was with my mother, and my biological mother there, And when I was first time I met my father was 9 months. May have not remembered, but it was my father. He was with a partner at the time, and her name was Anna Miting, and they ended up adopting me, and I was adopted into the Miting family and to an instrumental family in the community, and so I got a really interesting worldview. And then I grew up. I wanted to be a medical doctor, a physician, and a musician, and an artist, and I wanted to do the Hollywood scene. That was my thing. And so I went to high school. Make a long story short, I was all through school. I was drawn to the arts, and whether it was pencil drawing or whether it was, I was won a speech arts contest when I was 8 years old in the Prince George Playhouse, and it was interesting. It wasn't just a school district award. It was an award that was a regional award, and it was in grade 3 at a place called Nusty Hill, but it was called Carney Hill, and I won that award there. Won a speech arts contest, and it was interesting because I went to go. My parents had parted ways, and when I was in grade 5, I went to the school over here, and I went to seen this teacher the first day I was there. I had a rough time in that school, but I overcame that, and it was Sacred Heart, and then through high school I fell in love with music. I started writing, and it was something that nobody knew that I was doing, but I was always had music going around in my mindset and my heart, and I started writing music, and so when I went to high school, I took an arts program, and I took arts. And at PGSS at Vanier Hall, learned how to run that place, run the hall. I took it was almost like a 2-year program the teacher set up for me, and he said, "You stick with this." And he said, because he asked, you're really drawn to this, and it was I took lighting and stagecraft and acting. And so when I finished high school, I got a job. The first job I was out of high school. I was up in a place called Strathcona, the big open field, and I fell in love with working with young people. And so so it was a 6-month pilot project, and that 6-month pilot project, I'll never forget. It was a pilot projects are you don't know if you're going to get funded again. We started out with just a handful of young people, and before you know it, you have 20, 30 young people showing up each and every day, looking for opportunity, and this is the VLA. And being a young man, and at the time didn't know what all that meant, but I remember going to and it was someone said you have to go tell them now that you said the program is going to be finished and there's no more funding to continue. I'm 18 years old, and I go and I let the young people know, and this is in the beginning of April, and I never forget the tears, and I went, whoa. And when I said, a lot of indigenous young people, and I'll never forget the tears. And I sat down in the water, and I had tears in my eyes, and I looked at the young people, and I said, what can we do? What can we do? What can we do? What they were saying, and I said, I'm going to go find out, and I'll be back. That was the beginning of the journey. When I was 19 years old, I took a suitcase, a ghetto blaster, and a bag of tapes, and moved to Vancouver with heart's intent was to become an actor, a singer-songwriter, and to follow that dream, to inspire people to follow theirs. So when I was, but at the same time, you have to work and support yourself. And when I had the opportunity, the door was wide open. I was driving up the street in Vancouver. I was fixing up an old Mustang, and it was really, really nice old Mustang. I was living a very good life. Had a really good life. In December 88, I bought my first guitar. And it was something that I was so compelled. I pick an instrument up, but I never played it. And I had started writing a whole bunch of songs. And in '88, I went in December, and I bought myself a guitar for Christmas. And then in up the street further, the same day, I go into the Friendship Center, and in the Friendship Center, and said, "Hey, you want a piece of bannock, and you want some soup or whatever?" I said, "Sure," and I felt home. I felt back to my culture, to my roots, and to family, and because my family was up here. So I remember going in there, and I heard on the loudspeaker, said, "Hey, is that they're looking for actors and anybody who can sing or songwriter or this or anybody can do have an interest in being on sets and movie sets or learning." And I went, wait a minute, I wrote this number down. And so I went down the next day, I was down, within a week I was on the movie set of MacGyver. I mean on the set of MacGyver, and it just started to move. And it was moving fast. And it was, so in being young, you know, not comprehending, you following your dream, and this is starting to speak you more to this, and you think, is this for real? Is this really happening? So I was on you know, MacGyver and 21 Jump Street, and you know, Black Stallion series, Mickey Rooney, and you know, a whole bunch of other, and it just started, and then auditioning for movie parts, and then going on the sets, and I was, and then the producer going, you know, and pulling you over here, said, you know, people like Charlie Sheen and Emilio Estevez and Johnny Depp and all these, said, because you're on the same path. You're on that same journey. You have that principle. I said, principle? They said, I was thinking of school. No, they have a star principle, like something that attracts. And I said, it's a universal thing that's given to you. I said, whoa, this is cool. What does that mean? But you didn't know at the time, right? Because you're young. So anyways, he said, come over and sit with us. You know, and I remember going to sit over here, and you know, they're, you know, and the food on the sets are good, and it has started to get engaged more. And then within a couple weeks, I was auditioned for, had a young man, my buddy at the time was Eric Schwig. We were in my Mustang together, and he was playing harmonica. I was driving and came to my place for a coffee, and I was playing guitar, he was playing harmonica. We got a call that said, can you take Eric down to and Eric and you guys, we need you to go down to this audition for The Last of the Mohicans. I said, Last of the Mohicans, what's that? We were both looking at each other, and I went, whoa. I said, okay, so anyways, so I auditioned for the last, and so anyways, I auditioned for a role called Uncas, but my emotions shut down, and I know why, and I won't say this on screen, but I know why, and I knew I had to come back home. But you know, I got back, and Deidre, the Asian on the phone, she says, Ivan, you missed the Bayer. I missed what Bayer? She said, you missed the part Bayer, the major picture role. I said, whoa. I said, that must mean something. And is Eric still with you? So anyways, Eric on the phone, he said, Ivan. He's looking at me like this. I said, he said, Deidre wants me to take you back downtown, you know, to go see the producer and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, that was the last time I seen him. And then within just, I was, you know, I did a few other things. I was played someone in the alley who was, had a bottle in his hand, and a brown bottle, and I played a drunk on the street, you know, and it was, I don't see it as that, you know, because of a social conscience, and I said, and I remember playing that part, and I went, wow. I said, I need to, you know, and I said, I need to, if this has any bearing on what I need to do. I said, I went, wow, because I woke up and I said, I realized that I missed this major part. And I went, wow, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. But it brought me to Prince George. It brought me back to Prince George. You know, and you know, family dynamics change, and your connection to family. It brought me to Prince George. I'm going to stay only for about a year and get back to my career. And I started writing music, and I started writing a lot of music. And then got involved with community capacity building in Prince George. I worked with the Friendship Center for a number of years. And then he ended up negotiating, you know, a lot of the first agreements for putting the Métis Nation of British Columbia on the map, and you know, being a part of reconciliation, and done some major projects over the years, and to stay culturally connected to as well, connected to the grassroots, to people to make decisions, and like you say, the decision makers here are approachable, and they're like community people. And to, you know, do a lot of programming, and then now creating my own entity outside, you know, taking all the experiences that I've had over the years to create, and to also, you know, and use that to support the community, and support the individuals as well, and just to continue doing good works and moving forward. My love and passion for the arts has not changed. You know, sat on the local arts council here and helped, you know, with their programming here, and help, you know, bring and kind of piece some stuff together to bring the Canada Games in, and worked with, you know, Wendy Young in the council, you know, so said if I come to the board, to create a position to the board as the as the the liaison, the Indigenous liaison, and then for about a year or so it became the reconciliation officer, and I remember the chiefs were going, "What do you mean reconciliation officer? No. So I said, okay, I don't want to get into it." So anyways, the did that role for about 8 years, and helped and helped role model, and one thing I've always been, if you're in position, you can role model, and that's a big part of reconciliation is role modeling. And reconciliation meaning peacemaking and so on and so forth. If you're role modeling good things, people will see that, people will identify that and say, yeah, that's what this is.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes if you don't get it this way, if you're role modeling it like Wes is and humbly saying I am, and then we're doing something good. And we're role modeling that reconciliation piece. Mm-hmm. It just leads into other things. And and to all the years of working, painting pictures and being an artist, painting pictures in the minds and perceiving, taking ideas and putting them on paper, seeing them manifest into hundreds of millions of dollars of program ideas, and you go, wow, this is amazing. But also being a part of the healing community, part of setting up Men's Health, which is so important, about 10 years ago with Dr. Bowering, being in some really good positioning, so to speak, and that's what I like to do with other people and other people that draw close to my heart, is to know that there's opportunity, and it's just by either mentoring or role modeling, and just knowing that you open new doors for yourselves.
You absolutely
and to
can.
Support that.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned the role modeling aspect, because I feel that one of the greatest privileges that a person could ever have in life is strong mentorship or guidance or role models in their life. That is one of the greatest privileges that somebody could have is that mentorship. And mentorship it's multifaceted. It goes in two different ways. You can be the recipient of it, or you can be the one providing it. And both can be equally as powerful. I had no idea about The Last of the Mohicans. Michael Mann is probably one of my favorite directors. He did Heat and Ali and amazing movies. But that is just such a cool aspect of your history.
It was in '92 when I started working Reconnect, and I was willing to sign a contract for a year and go back. And then and it was a big part of it was taking kids, young Reconnect youth to the movies. So all of a sudden, it was in 1992, because I remember an audition in '91, and then '92, and it was just like, wait a minute, The Last of the Mohicans on the big screen at the Odeon Cinema, and I'm saying that's the part. Uncas, I'm model for that. And it was nice to see Eric Stray do a lot of amazing things. And to see him do Chief Andy on Blackstone, and to know that, that was, being a part of that. But I'm just in the process of creating an entity, but at the same time, getting back to what I lost my father last year, during this pandemic, and just to know that. My father, he wanted me to continue. I made a lot of sacrifices to be with family and to be connected. But it was, and he was ill, off and on for about 20 years. And he was an amazing leader, in this community. He supported a lot of people. He was a strength and an anchor and a cornerstone. And that I miss him dearly. But I know, being his oldest, he was the oldest, and me being his oldest put something in my DNA, and it was to pick up the ball, and to continue walking up that middle road, to know the way the world is, but continue, and he wanted me to record my music, so so I put my music on the sidelines, and I put my acting and everything on the sidelines, the stuff that I really wanted to do. And to now, he said, just pick it up. And I know that, in being spiritual, he's okay now. and where he was going to be okay now, and that I would see him again because I walked that path, that I will see him again, and to know that, then the Paquette family is a big family, and just to know that, that's one of the other reasons what brought Wesley and I together is both of our fathers, drove truck. And we, you just keep on trucking.
Keep on trucking.
Keep on trucking.
And what you just said about your father is that he was a role model in the community who helped so many people.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I'm seeing in front of me. Role models in the community who are putting all their attention on focusing on helping others. But I have to ask, with the 47 consecutive days since the pandemic arrived, every Monday night for 20 straight months, in addition to everything else that you do, for National Truth and Reconciliation Day, for Indigenous Peoples Day in June, do you ever face burnout? Are there ever times where you feel down, you lack the energy, and you say, this is enough, I have so much on my plate, so many people are relying on me? I'll let you take this question, Wes, but do you ever face burnout? And if you do, what do you do to counterattack that burnout? Or how do you lift yourself up when you might be feeling a little bit burnt out?
Well, to answer that question honestly, I'm in recovery, and I had 15 to 20 years of hardcore addictions and drinking. And I put, when you live that lifestyle, it's 24 hours. You don't sleep, you go hard, and I was a good person, but I just had a bad habit.
Would you mind?
I've got 4 years of recovery on the red road now, and for me, I've turned what I've done. There's one thing I needed to change, and that was everything. So I changed everything, but I still have that energy, I still have that ambition, and I still have that love, but I've turned it into a good thing, and I've turned it into love for the community, and in turn I get that love back, right? So I go hard, and as I said, I believe in the Creator, and He puts things in order for me, that time management. And yes, I do burn out. But other people give me their energy back, and they give me that love back. And I have a mother, like I'd mentioned earlier, that I love like no other, and she goes hard just as much as me, so I have her DNA. So it's just kind of embedded in me. When I get burned out, I go to the hospital, and it helps me. I drum. I see people that are less fortunate than me. I see people that are struggling more than me. I see people that are battling, life-threatening diseases, viruses, whatever, cancers, and I've witnessed it with my own family members. The cancer is a big one, right? So for me, I just remember that, and my heart just continues on, and the energy flows through me, and I've got elders like Ivan, that guide me. I have good
I got
friends.
you too, man.
I have friends now, and I used to have, I used to hang with the wrong people, but now I'm hanging with, I'm not judging people, I'm just hanging with healthier people, right? And it's made me the person I am today. It's given me that energy, it's given me that love, that passion, and I wouldn't give it up for anything.
And there's the old saying that you're the sum of the 5 people that you spend the most time with, right?
Yes.
And that's why it's so important, so critically imperative to surround yourself with good people. If you're surrounding yourself with people that are a negative influence, or have characteristics that you just don't agree with, that's going to be contagious, whether you like it or not, and it's going to wear off into your own characteristics and personality. And so the old saying that you are the sum of the average sum of the 5 people that you spend the most time with is so true. And you mentioned recovery and addictions, and that's a very relevant topic with what we're not just in Prince George, but province, nation, worldwide, what we're seeing with the opioid crisis and what we're seeing with the amount of homelessness increasing substantially. Do you mind talking about your addiction and your recovery? Because I think there's a lot of people out there, actually I know there's a lot of people out there that would benefit from knowing that a community leader like yourself went through hell and back to get to where they are today, and that recovery is possible. Would you mind talking about?
Yeah, no, definitely recovery is possible. And as you're saying, role models, setting examples, I am definitely one. I believe in miracles, and they happen every day. And I never gave up. I had family members that never gave up, but I had been to 10 treatment centers. I'd been to detox here like 9 times. I never gave up. I had family members that would come search and get me, my mother being one, my main one. But, the last time I went to Prince George Detox, there was a saying that says, where there is life, there is hope, right? And I'd just come from East Hastings, and I came up to detox, and I just knew something was different this time. And I went in, I read that, I followed that quote, went through the recovery process. I mean, go to detox, get that time to get your head, not even straight, but just to get some food and some sleep in you. Then when you're in there, you gotta have action, you gotta ask for help, and go to a treatment center and give yourself that time. I did it 10 times, and finally I got it. And there was major ones in the background that even, that I would get the treatment done. I'd go to that treatment center, but I wouldn't follow through or give back at the end. So that's why I like to give back now, because you got to help others to complete whatever that black hole is, that disease, that addiction is in you, and you need to fill that up with helping others, because you feel, for me, you feel the love back, and you just feel the love for yourself. So you go through those processes, and again, find those 5 people that you can hang out with, find a sponsor, find an elder, find, family is tough. Your family is they can eat, it's very important to have family, but they can also enable you or distract you. So you have to find somebody that's not a family member or a friend, and confine them in whatever you're going through. And there's many things you can go through, and in recovery, it's a process. And I've learned it's a process, one day at a time, and that's all I got. And I continue to fill those days to the best of my ability with helping others. I got to hell, and people say you hit rock bottom. Well, when I hit rock bottom, there's a basement to rock bottom, and you keep scratching, and that's how powerful the disease was with me, right? I mean, like I said, I had a huge heart, I had a good family, I had ample opportunities to get well, but it just, you're so lost. It's so cunning, powerful, and baffling that you don't know. And that's where I get to compassion for street people, because I can relate. I lived on the streets of Calgary, Edmonton. Like I'd get to a top, I'd build myself, I'd go to recovery, I'd get well, I'd get a job, I'd go to my full potentials almost, and then I'd have that one slip. And in that one slip, I always say my first drink is I'm pretty much I'm homeless too, right? Because that's where this disease, and it is a disease, brings people and brought me. So, just going forward, I just finally had enough. I know the Creator has me. I feel I'm on borrowed time. Not that I just feel that borrowed time needs to be given to others, right? And when I'm out there helping Moccasin Flats, I'm hugging people, I'm drumming with them. The drum saved my life. That was huge, and that's why I continue to drum in every aspects of life that have issued my past, like homelessness, cancer, the Wheeling Warriors of the North. I felt helpless watching my family members die of cancer, so I get to do that. Volunteer because I love hockey at the Prince George Spruce Kings. I'm part of the North Central Label Council. I'm part of these unions, and they all help me this year with the National Truth and Reconciliation Day. When you reach out to these quality things, it's just makes you that much more better of a person. It makes you feel better. When I look in the mirror, I can be comfortable in my skin today. I lost the prime years of my life, but it was the lesson that I see today. I can be an example and a role model for people that feel they have no hope. Today, while I was drumming at the land back at the hospital, I have the brothers and sisters. They come out and they're like, I was part of the 60 scoop. I need your help. So I have these little cards Margaret Jackson made me, so I hand them out, and I said, she's a woman. I said, I can direct you to a woman that'll be able to help you. I mean, of course I'll help you, but it's a man helping a man, and that's why the last treatment center I went to, it was the men's trauma, and that helped me because I could concentrate on what was wrong with me without having the distraction of, say, women, or just, I could be more comfortable. I finally was comfortable enough to share my childhood, my recovery, or the traumas of what happened to me, because there was a lot in my addiction, things that you would never think you would do or ever do, you do. And you have to get through that process, and the 12 steps helped me get through that. It's very, very important. I did the 12 steps. I found my culture, and I found good people, right? And I have to say, 2015, when the Canada Games here, and I picked up the drum for the first time and was invited on the stage with the Claytley Tenay, watching Kyle Sampson, watching Lynn Hall, driving people around. I actually still hadn't, it just brought so much spirit into me at that time. The drum brought me back to life. The drum is a healer, and that's why we continue to do what we do. Is we bring that drum, we bring that heartbeat. It saved my life, and like I said before, it helped me. The feeling like no other, being in a hospital drumming for people way before the pandemic. It's why I feel I need to bring the drum everywhere I go, because I'm comfortable, I'm me, and I'm confident with it. I'm confident without it, but I'm confident in bigger gatherings with it. Like I went to the Nights Inn and brought out the drum, and eventually, people came out, brothers and sisters came out, and they started singing, they started dancing, and
the drum is so
universal. Everybody loves it,
right? And the way it can bring people together, and it's so attractive. Right? People hear the drum and they gravitate towards the sound and the energy, the positive energy that stems from that drum. Interesting that, well, first of all, you said you missed out on the prime years of your life, and I feel like both of you guys are actually living the prime years of your life right now with what you're doing for the community. But also, 2015, that's not that long ago, 6 years ago, that you first started making that beat of the drum yourself, and look where it's taken you ever since. When did you fall in love with the drum?
Fell in love with the drum, and when I fell in love with sound and light. They received an honor drum in 2005. It was flown here from Nanaimo and Bubba Wrap, from a potlatch from my auntie and my uncle on the Henry side of the family. And it was there might be a connection to Dr. Bonnie Henry. We're just finding that out. And in Nanaimo, it was flown here, and it came in Bubba Wrap, and my auntie, she phoned up all at the same time. It was went down to go see the Purelator, and it came in a box, and was wondering what was this. And something, being a spiritual person, was felt that I was drawn to that, and as soon as it opened up, all of a sudden I heard a Coast Salish. Ah-ho, 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 ah-ho. And it was almost like the walls and the paint in my home just started crackling. And then tears in my eyes, and I'm like, whoa. And she said, my boy, you got it. It says, and it said, you earned it. And it said, you earned that drum. It's from my uncle that it was, in all the different directions. And an uncle that passed, and he was very respected in Nanaimo and on the island, and wanted me to have the family drum for helping others. And I just cherished it. It was the one I play all the time. And shared it, I share it in the workshops, and when I'm facilitating in communities, traveling, and to play it and share the story of how all these things come, and how my drumstick come, how the feathers come, and how the smudges come, and I don't go looking for it; it just comes, and I just be open to receive, and to know that the universe is responding, and the universe has responded to us working together like two men that give each other strength, and we support each other, and they support his journeys. And learning is ongoing, and learning, and we learn from each other. We learn from the experiences that we go through. We learn something new every day, and being open and allowing the creator in the universe to teach you what, good things. Some of the lessons are hard and difficult, and you're wondering why you're going through them, but you will be guided by experience or experiences that you need to go through, and the things that will guide you along the way. This was the right thing to do, because that was what the universe wanted, and I'm just responding and being open to it, and to receiving. And to know that, sometimes the energy isn't there, but you find it inside of yourself, to know that, family members that have gone through difficulty, individuals, and your experiences of people who've gone through difficulties in the hospital, and the staff, to see, when you're up and you see, making the heart symbols, and see the nurses and the people on their ventilators, raising their hands, brings tears to your eyes, and to know that there's hope, for all of us. There's the power of the Spirit, the human spirit, that's given to us, and we make that connection from here to a higher purpose and to a higher frequency, which is sound and light. That we make the connection to Yahweh, the Creator God, the Creator of all things. That everything we see with our naked eye is a creative process. That we're in tune.
And you guys are creators yourself of that hope. You mentioned the word hope. That hope, if it's a Monday evening and there's a patient at the hospital, they might not have received hope that night unless it was for them looking outside their hospital window and seeing you gentlemen and 20 other people with a drum in their hand, providing them with just that hope. And you've done that for 20 months straight, every single Monday night, starting with 47 consecutive days. Absolutely unbelievable.
And they're inside with healthcare workers, social workers, doctors that have been going strong and can do the best to give them the emotional, support they need. And then they hear our drums. But we also have those social workers coming out bawling, right? Like they've had hardcore, we have nurses, so we get to nourish them. So when you go through these Monday nighters with us being that light in the darkness, we'll just say that in a humble way, and you get to support these nurses, these doctors, these social workers, and you get to support the people inside because they can't have family with them, right? And it's just that I can't burn out from that. There's no way that my energy is going to go anywhere else but for that. That makes me happy I'm alive today. Because the recovery that I've gone through was worth every step of the way. All three of the events we did in 2021 was the Indigenous Day, Canada Day. We celebrate Canada Day because I'm a crazy damn Canadian, that's for sure. I was born in '77, an Indigenous man, a Dutch man, and I was born in Canada, and I love Canada, and I'm definitely crazy. I was insane. Crazy. I was an insane damn Canadian for a while when I was in my habit, but today I'm a crazy damn Canadian. And Malugwala is Crazy Echo, is what a Gitsan elder gave me that name. But I'm just saying, I'm proud to be a Canadian. I used to battle with being Indigenous and Dutch and have that fight in between me. This man also told me at one time, you have the best of both worlds, and you can be a light for both worlds, and you can be that person, a mediator. Yep. And today, we're mediators. And we're trying to connect everybody together. Mm-hmm. And we might not follow every protocol. We do not try to disrespect anybody ever. That's right. But we do what we do the best of our ability with our hearts, our experience, and our love. And we do that. At the start of the pandemic, we had people telling us not to drum there. Yeah. But we just, this is what's right. Yeah. So we're going to do what's we feel is right, and we totally don't mean to disrespect anybody. We just want to show the love and to stand up as an individual man to get people to come together. And I really respected the fact that when Canada Day arrived this year on July 1st, that it was about a week and a half, just over a week and a half after Indigenous Peoples Days, and there's a lot of calls for across the nation from people saying cancel Canada Day, and a lot of people saying that they weren't proud to be from Canada anymore. You guys didn't. You guys said, look, there are some issues that have been brought forward that we're going to work through, but in no sense should we ever not be proud to be Canadian. We have to work through these issues together collectively as a nation, and then at the end of that, we're going to be prouder than ever to be Canadian. That's right. But a lot of that starts with reconciliation. And we had Kim Gucci on this podcast, I believe it was in around late April. So it was about a month before the discovery of the Kamloops Residential School, where there's the remains of 215 children from the residential school, from the ground penetrating radar. And about a month before this happened, we had this discussion with Kim Gucci. She's a good friend of our executive producer, Sellens. He recommended her for the podcast, put us in touch. We had her in probably a week later. And in preparing for that podcast, we researched a lot, and a lot of it had to do with the history of residential schools. And I'm embarrassed to admit this, but this was really my first exposure to it. In the high school curriculum and elementary school, it wasn't part of it. It wasn't something that
I myself learned in the school district growing up. And so when I was researching for this podcast, I remember just being so sad knowing that this actually happened, but it still wasn't being really discussed mainstream. And so Kim brought a lot of these issues for light and was able to talk about these. But when this discovery happened in Kamloops in late May, it was almost a good thing in the way, because what happened was it had the entire nation talking about what happened, and the entire nation educating themselves about the history of these residential schools. I mean, over 150,000 children starting from age 5, over 4,000 deaths that we know about. And like, as a father myself, I think about the fact that I have a 5-year-old that could have been taken from my household to try to eliminate the culture that I'm providing her with, the cultural genocide. And it's more than cultural genocide, it's just genocide. But how did you guys feel when this announcement from the Kamloops Residential School, the 215, first happened, as well as the subsequent discoveries, as well as the ones that are going to eventually be brought to public light?
When you mention education, is it being aware of some of the different dynamics of the red pages back in the old Trudeau days and the white pages, and then the RCAP report, which came out in 1991. This is all at the same time when I was doing the Hollywood scene and writing and working on the street with young people. So I was going to stick around for a year, stuck around for 7 years, then became the first vice president of the Métis Nation of British Columbia, negotiating agreements and putting putting the Métis Nation of British Columbia on the map, under the Constitution, 1982 Constitution. Talk about creativity and art, how it came into picture. Is that I kept it to myself up until the last few months, and it was in 1998. Outside of my position, I was approached by the bureaucrats. When I hear Chrétien said he didn't know, but I met 3 bureaucrats from Chrétien's office sent to Surrey, British Columbia. There was 3 guys, and they said, "Do you know anything about residential schools?" I said, "No, I don't know." He said, "Do you know?" They said, so my grandma mentioned she went to this school, throughout her life. And I said, "What about yourself?" And I said, "I had a hard time in a school." They said, "We know about that." And I went, "Whoa. So you guys know a few things." And they said, "We need you to help us outside of your position." Canada asked for my help. And I just said, "Okay." So I said, "Can you meet us?" And this is through my advisor. He said, "Ivan, this is a good thing." I said, "I'm trying to trust what's going on." And then he said, "So I'm in this position to create and to help, and the joy of service and feeling compelled that this felt important. And here's these gentlemen, meet us in this hotel in Vancouver, the same evening." So sure enough, and to talk openly about what this stuff is. This is because, and to create the template. And to create the template was the BC United Métis Youth Circle. Outside the office was someone who could technically write, and to create this piece to engage young people to be part of a process that would engage them to make decisions on behalf of themselves, to see what their needs were, to take pressure off the government. Because at the same time, the Healing Foundation was set up, the initial $500 million, so on and so forth. So I started to really see this picture, to create, okay, here's a template. And I said, let's see if this works. So the modeling, bringing the people together, bringing the young people from different directions, from different regions, to be part of this committee, the youth committee, the BC United Métis Youth Circle, to become this part of this committee, this part that would give direction, and to say, is this model is really working? You say, wow, and a year later, they became a core model in Heritage Canada that was put throughout the entire Canada of youth making making decisions on behalf of themselves, and hundreds of millions of dollars put into this modeling. I thought this is good from a creative process, having that creative mindset and having that understanding, but utilizing the cultural, our culture, our own culture to help Canada, and to help, because Canada means community. And there's unity in community. With separation, there is no community. It's where we commune and work together and use our gifts and talents and abilities to communicate. Communication, to commune, to go to and fro and work together. That's what community is helping one another. When no one is down, we have to lift our people up. If I'm looking on the street over here and I see there's 80% and 80% of my people out there, and I say Indigenous, being connected Indigenous, and knowing I've had family members out there, and knowing I have a family member out there, I'm going to be concerned, because I know that the education needs to happen, because something is missing in the boat with respect to my relative who had a really, really difficult time, and sitting sitting on a committee, being the Indigenous representative on the anti-racism committee in the province of British Columbia, being the Indigenous elder representative for the province, know that I need to advocate for not only just my relative, but for the individuals on who are disenfranchised, from the communities, because this pandemic has done a lot of things. Not only it's the residential schools have created, separation and generations of disconnect from our parenting. The Ministry of Children and Families is full of our children, but we have to get back home. Our young males and our people don't need to go to jail to learn about their culture. When 70% of the indigenous are up on this hill. I've had a lot of my own relatives that I love dearly. Our people don't have to go to jail to learn about themselves. They should be in their own communities learning about, we have a long ways to go, but we have to have this open dialogue and these conversations. And that's what's important, is that we communicate and educate each other and learn from each other. And no, none of this anymore. But let's rise up let's rise up a new nation, a real Canada for all people. Mm. This is what this is all about. Creating a new Canada. That's why I wanted to come here. I'm a crazy guy because people think I'm crazy because I'm not afraid to go up to the middle road and use that oral speech from the time I was 8 years old. But that's a gift, because the teacher in Sacred Heart, when I went there, was on my tippy toes on getting the strap the first day, because what happened there is that they came in second place in that contest 2 years previous when I was in grade 3, and I went to that school in grade 5. When I went to that school in grade 5, was on my tippy toes, Brother Leopold, and I was going to go see the doctor, and they said, "What doctor?" Well, the doctor was his strap. And it was just, that's not what we need to be teaching. We need to be teaching those enhancement agreements and stuff that's in the schools, and we need to continue working with the education system. If the residential school system, we have to start with the education system and start educating. And start having the dialogue and conversation. It's really nice because I'm friends with, a lot of the leaders in the community. And to hear Kyle, he wants to build a drum, put a drum in his hand, he wants to build a drum, and he, pounding the drum, and he's, Shirley Bond wants to make a drum. And Todd, he wants to make a drum, and there's other, Susan Scott wants to make a drum, and a couple other councillors said, why don't we bring them all together and let's have all a great big drum making session and make a community drum like this.
Yeah,
and come together.
And speaking about the educational system, you are having a strong impact on it, whether it's at the high school level or in post-secondary school, because what you guys were able to accomplish in partnership with Laura Lynn Murdoch, also a phenomenal person, and the UNBC Timberwolves, when you guys went to the first home game weekend of the season after over 600 days of not being able to play in front of spectators, it was more about the basketball that weekend. The basketball was secondary, which is unorthodox in these Timberwolves games, where you guys were able to go on the courts, and you guys were able to do the drum circle with the athletes, and you could see how proud the university culture was when it wasn't just the UNBC Timberwolves social media channels that were sharing this content. It was the university's main account. It was all these sub accounts of them. You guys took over their social media accounts for basically a full week. And that's powerful. Just because when you see those social media posts of these young athletes who are getting ready to play their basketball games at age between 17 and 21, and all of a sudden it's all about that drum, and it's all about the culture, and it's all about community. That was great to see. How did that start anyways? Did Laura Lynn approach you, or was it Jeff Payne?
Well, Rich Abdi approached me and asked me, and we did the soccer games. We did the soccer first down at Massett Stadium. And then a week later or two, we got invited up to the sports center at UNBC.
Yeah. And soccer was the unveiling of the New Jerseys.
Yes,
that same
the soccer, and it was the unveiling of the basketball as well.
Yeah.
That very first initial, and they approached us and asked us to get some drummers and to come out and help showcase Trevor Angus, who is a very well-known guitar artist. I'm actually wearing two. This is a ring of his, and this is a ring of his, and his art to showcase it. So right off the bat, it's an honor to, of course, be part of the first Indigenous university jerseys being represented by Trevor Angus. To be able to be, again, we are a mixed. UHNBC Prince George Traditional Drummers are a mixed. It's about everybody. Yep. And when you bring out that big drum Vortex, we have Big Bertha, and we have Vortex.
Is that the name?
Awesome. Well, Big Bertha is being fixed right now. At the bottom of it, we went too hard with it, but we have Vortex. Rolly Hillier, an elder, makes me these drums. But when we use that drum together. But when you've seen those UNBC basketball players get on that, they were pumped, right? And they were playing it, and big smiles, and they just won their game, and we got to sing the Men's Healing song with them. It was Men's Healing Month, and as you can tell, Men's Healing Month. But it was such an honor to see them be so pumped up to be part of the traditional drum, right? Yeah. The sacredness of it, and to see these next leaders to jump on that drum was amazing. And again, it's about everybody being together. I mean, it is an Indigenous drum. I mean, there's drums all over you can use, but it's about unity, right? And it's a healer, and it brings joy to people that pick up I call them thunder sticks, and make the heartbeats, right? So I just quickly want to go back a little, or
sure,
can I go back to what you said about the 215?
Of course.
And he had mentioned in the jails need more education for culture. Where I learned my culture was in treatment centers. Round Lake and at Wilpsset and Kitwanga is where I had to go to learn about my culture. And that was 60 Scoop, and residential schools were introduced to me then about the 215 in 2017. Elder Ray Harris and Gary Patsy came in, talked about 60 Scoop, talked about residential schools, and I was like, whoa. And it hit me. That's why, I grew up. I love my father today, Clement Mitchell. He lives in Whitsett. But that's why he was the way he was, so quiet, so shut down, so couldn't be that father that I always wanted him to be for all those years. And it just, the things that had happened through the generations, and unhealthy acts, I'm not going to get into it, and the unhealthy acts that happened to me in early childhood were because of 60 Scoop and the children being taken, right? So I finally went to treatment centers and learned about my culture. I was ignorant. Had ignorance against it as well, because I didn't know, just as well as anybody else didn't know residential schools and what the severity of what happened. And then Indian Horse came out, and as I drummed, all these awarenesses came out. So finally,
and just 2 seconds, Wes, another big factor in what you're articulating right now is the fact that a lot of people didn't recognize that the last residential school closed in 1997. Yeah. It's not like we're looking 7-8 centuries into the past, and it was our great relatives. 1997.
Yeah.
97 was the last residential school.
Well, I remember in
closed.
1994, my cousins were in O'Grady, and I thought, okay, it's a boarding school. They're here to get education. I thought they're in a safe spot. They're in a church, right? And going to school, you think they're safe. And I don't know if anything happened. I'm just saying that was my impression right off the bat. You just think they're getting educated. It's a boarding school. They got somewhere to stay. There wasn't the education for them in Morristown or Whitsett now, but it just oblivious to it, not on purpose, but just and I think about that 1997, not too long ago, right? So when the 215 came out, I had an awareness, but I didn't know there was the graves, and then it was just another level more. And I've went to LeJac a few times for the 215 since then. I went up in Fort St. James to their ceremonies, and just the stories are horrible. I don't want to get into it, but LeJac, a lot of them were incinerated, so they're not going to find bones. These are from elders that went there. My grandfather went to LeJac, Donald Mitchell, and Rosarita Mitchell, and Hazel Mitchell. My auntie and my grandmother all went there, and the stories of them trying to escape, going down the railroad track and getting retrieved and brought back, right? So,
and those kind of stories are where intergenerational trauma is a real thing. It absolutely is. And when I was able to witness you guys at National Indigenous Peoples Days or the Truth and Reconciliation Day, you brought a lot of elders onto stage, or you brought a lot of individuals onto the stage, gave them the microphone, and you just said, speak from the heart, speak what's on your mind. But what a powerful process it is for people to have an audience, or just to be able to let it out, so it's not bottled inside anymore. In a safe place.
Safe, yeah. With your people, and to know that you're supported. And
in a time now where I feel, or at least I hope, that the recipients of this message are more understanding, or at least they can resonate a lot more with the pain and the trauma, because they know more about the past, about the history. But I also think there's a lot of people that want to help, or want to understand, or want to do something, but might not know what to do, or how to help. What would your recommendations for somebody that is wanting to help, or wanted to educate themselves, what would your recommendations be?
There was had an experience, just recently, and it was and to know that, when that announcement was 215, and to know through the stories, and elders saying, and going to events and said, I'm in here, because I've saved this. It's in the old envelopes and stuff. They wrote down potlatch systems, their system, their way, and they wanted me to help protect this. Can you give this? What should I do with this? They wrote down what their systems were, and to have that, have them, and to be supported. To give them direction to where they can talk and communicate openly with their people. But when it was that announcement, when you mentioned that, and that was the bureaucrats, when they were approached, said that was they said that was the year. This was the last residential school that was closed in Saskatchewan, and knowing in here we need you to help, and to know that I've in my world, in that creative world, have played my part. To know that programming and modeling has taken place, and these are living and breathing documents, and if you take a look at the RCAP report, which is the Northern Commission of Aboriginal People report, was a report. It was a 20 year. These are 20-year living documents, from 1991 to 2011, and then the 94 recommendations. And we just have to keep looking, educating people. What are these recommendations? And having those conversations, and ask active participation. Keep on using social media and engaging in the conversation to say and to say, this is what we need to do. We need to continuously have the conversation, allow the people to heal. I remember when it was knowing, when it goes back to the cultural base. I've been born into culture. It was a hidden thing up until 1988, 89, when I walked into that Friendship Center in Vancouver and said, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. and also engage my culture at the same time. I got fully immersed, and to say to continuously, have, and share, and share what you have and what you need. The conversation of bringing a bunch of people, and down over to what we call Moccasin Flats is not educating the people. Wes and I were doing it right. There was bylaw officers who did come. We were drumming. They had drumsticks in their hand. They said, we get it. And there was a smudge going, we get it. They're putting on the shirts that they had, we get it.
Orange shirts, yeah.
And to go and to, there's a lot of different dynamics involved. And it was just, we just have to work together.
That inclusive. Once you include
Absolutely.
them and invite them in and that inclusiveness is vital, right?
Yep.
And not to, you're going to have people that, have been through that trauma, and it's hard for them to even talk about it, let alone invite somebody into their circle, right? So, it's complicated, but at the same time, if we can have the individual leaders and role models doing that out there, doing it on social media. You're not doing it out of ego. We're doing it out of our heart, and to be humble and to just hopefully be, that light and that spark
Awareness.
and that brightness and that and bring that unity.
Yeah.
So, these jails need more culture up there. It's 90% people up in the jails even that are Indigenous. I've been incarcerated a few times, and there's no help when you're in there. It's almost worse in there than when you're out on the streets. Like, seriously, it's the protection in there is not well, and there's no help. And you get thrown back out, and what are you going to do? You're going to go right back to what you were doing before because you've got some food, you're healthier. But there's the mentality, you're solid in jail, and there's not healthy people to be around in there, and there's not the help that you need.
Yeah.
There just isn't. So it's a system that just, you're on that hamster wheel, right? Mm-hmm. And it's hard. And to answer your question about what can we do to bring that culture, well, when there's gatherings are huge. The 3 that we had this year were major, but when you're going to LeJac and you're going to, you gotta be able to, I know, but we need that unity, we need that gathering, we need the people together, not on Zoom. It does help to have these, but for Indigenous nations, you need to do it together, and you need to have the leaders there, and you need to have the people that are willing to be there, right? So when we had our Sea of Orange on Canada Day,
having John Brink there was amazing.
Drumming with you.
What he did for the Indigenous community, and I've known John Brink for a lot of years, and off and on through the community. But he's been a big supporter of Indigenous people. And to see, and it was a lot of, even working in the employment field, and to know that he supported a lot of Indigenous workers, that some doors were closed, but he was there to open the door. You come and you give a good day's work, you've got yourself a job. An opportunity, creating opportunity. This man, is proud to, with his book and his generosity and his story, and to honor, we honored them both with eagle feathers, out of honor and out of respect. He earned those
for being a big part of that as well.
Absolutely, and Scott, what you've done, and to share and use communication and media, and to share and to converse and tell the story, and to know that, it's a crazy business, but to some degree, but it's when sometimes we don't understand, you think you're going crazy, but continue doing what you're doing. We'll continue what we're doing. And the support staff continue here telling the story. Continue telling the story. Mm-hmm. There's been some amazing stories, that are coming out in the north, and with just the, we can't wait to go and turn on the cable vision there, and to see this story.
So. To have the John Brinks giving the orange shirts, to have the UHNBC jerseys, to all these awarenesses are big progresses along the way that people will see the unity and see the love and kind of a reconciliation in there. But once we get to a point where people understand the homeless live a different lifestyle, where they understand we're just Indigenous people compared to any culture live different ways, and you got to respect that. But when you find those similarities and you do things together, it's going to change. It's going to make that much of a difference in the world, well, community in the world, but as a whole of trying to heal Canada. You know, we're not gonna if we're spread apart like this, it's not good. You got so many holes, but when you're together like this in a fist, and that's what we grow at UHNBC drum group, and we grow just sitting here together today. And hopefully, when people are looking and seeing what's going on in this little circle of trust we have here, it spreads, it ripples. Like when we drummed up there, they could hear us in the VLA, and you know, people that weren't. The brothers and sisters just came and showed up. People that went right through the hospital, right? And
that's just it. There's a lot of people in this community and beyond that are struggling right now, that are going through some tough times, that feel alone, like they have nobody to reach out to. And the one hope I have is if somebody who is struggling that's watching this podcast episode or listening to it, that they know there's a welcome space at these Monday night drum groups, that they can come out and there's going to be the help that they need. They might not even realize how powerful of an experience it might be, or what that healing journey might look for them. But there's people in this community that want to help them, and there's ways for them to actually show up, grab a drum, participate, and you'll leave feeling like a different person. And there's one more thing I want to say, is that you guys deal with some very heavy subjects, some very heavy topics, whether it's trauma or reconciliation or PTSD or addiction, or it's a lot of different crises that you're dealing with, but you always find a way to maintain your sense of humor. You always find a way to laugh, and you always find a way to recognize that smiling and laughing is important. It really is. Even with everything that's on your plate, that's on your shoulders, this heavy weight, you still manage to make those smiles, because that's just as contagious as the help you're providing.
We've had our share of tears with everybody. You know, and you know, and Marlise Grulich, and she was one of the reasons why I didn't go back to follow my dream in a good way. When she pulled me to the stage for the first time, and it was the first time I stood in front of 15,000 people on the stage, she said, "I need you on Canada Day." This would have been my 28th year. And it was on Canada Day, after the politicians sang, to get everybody engaged. You know, and it was just, I missed that excitement, you know, to get up on, and that many people to say, I'm a proud Canadian, and I'm doing my best to make it good for all people. You know, and that was the message that said, there's no place on earth like Prince George, British Columbia, Canada. You know, and if there's a model city in Canada, this is it.
It really is. Yeah. Our people that have grown up and lived in Prince George their entire life might not recognize how special this community is until you see and witness other communities, other provinces, other countries. Prince George is an incredibly special place where we look out for each other in this community. We really do. And we're lucky to call this place home. Plus, it's like the coolest confluence in the world, right? Does it get any better in terms of confluences?
It all comes to
definitely a beauty.
Before we wrap this up, I want to give one shout out to Stephen, who is just an amazing photographer. Because Stephen, he's there all the time with you, every Monday night, every event, and he comes with a smile and he gets it. He absolutely understands why you're there. So, Stephen, keep up the good work. If you're watching, listening.
One who walks with bears.
One who walks with bears.
And he's also part of the Sky Nation. He's got eagles around him all the time. So
that's absolutely right.
He's a gem.
Love him. Also, a shout out to all of the Wheelin' Warriors of the North who are watching this right now.
Yes, the Wheelin' Warriors of the North have, you know, that fight against cancer is another one that's strong, and it seems as just as we get to one point, you know, everybody's different. It's just amazing to continue that journey of fighting cancer, right?
Absolutely.
And that's a family in its own right there.
You know, my mom still talks about it to this day. When we did the ride back in August, where we're biking out to Purdon Lake and back, where she'd be at the side of the highway honking her horn, you'd ride by on your bike and you'd just be like, cheering.
She gave me me that cheering and the ringing the bell.
She still talks
Mama
about
Maggie.
that.
Mama Maggie, right? Yeah, I love her.
You left an impact on her, so I really appreciate that. Do you think we'll be able to recruit Ivan for a future ride, maybe 2022?
Well, you know what? I'll tell you a story. When I was thinking 1973, I was talking to my mom this, 1973, used to have a marathon, and the marathon was called Moccasin Miles. Now it was Moccasin Miles. I ran from Hubble Farm to Prince George and won a trophy.
Wow.
I said, and then remember there was also the events. They used to have little marathons, the 10-kilometer marathons. Used to run in those. Used to do a lot of biking. I love sports. I was a long and short distance runner. Still, I was asked John Masters. He said, and Tom Masters. You go, Ivan. A couple of years ago, he said, I can't wait to have you on my team. But it was his son Tom. And he used to go to John McGinnis. As I couldn't afford to. You can't afford. Couldn't afford to get all the things I wanted into because I didn't want to ask. But it was, he said, Ivan, I would have supported, I would have given you everything you needed because that's how fast you were.
Wow.
And they said, now he's trying to get me on the seniors team. That's giving my age away.
That's a compliment coming from Tom.
But that was a compliment. Him and his partner there.
Dick Von
said,
yeah.
He said, I can't wait to get you on the team. And he said because it was, I didn't even train. It was just you have that natural speed, but the pandemic has put on, an extra 10 pounds. I think some of it, look, Mr. Muscle there, but so
West,
you lose that extra 10 pounds, and who knows? Maybe the senior games will get involved again, and there's so many things. They say there's a second wind in life, and this is I've come to that that season in my life where every day is special, and when you hit over 50 and you hit over a couple numbers after 50, and you take that every day is precious. You had everything that you put into it, and to know that the people that you surround yourself like yourself, thank you for being in my life, and got to know you the last while, and to and of course my buddy here, my partner here, Wesley. We've
West,
y'all.
West, y'all.
Indigenous Live, man.
Indigenous Live, Cultural Side, Crazy Echo.
Absolutely.
But all these have meaning behind it, and they bring this community together, and we're looking forward to 2022.
Here we go.
And thank you, Salem, for supporting this.
Thank you, Salem.
We love you.
Everybody.
For the world.
And you know what's awesome about the fact that when Wes asked you if you wanted to join the Wheelin' Warriors, you didn't say no. So Karen Piche will be calling you tomorrow.
Karen Piche is going to recruit you. You're coming down to Chilliwack, and you're going to do that day ride August 27th, 2022. And we're going to rock it, right?
Right.
Bam!
Nothing but love for you guys.
Do I have to train or what?
No, you can be a support. There's many ways.
You can
be there with
support.
With your Yoda mask on and your smudge.
We had a lot of teams that my dad. I think my dad and our family we supported for over 20 years with Cancer Society. All the teams, all the walking teams that we did, and my nephew. About 3 years ago, he won a car. He was only 6 years old. Eh?
Oh wow! Look at that.
Quickly before we end.
Okay.
March 26, 2022, we're doing up a proclamation. Lynn Hall asked me to do a proclamation up. We're going to do it for what we have been doing up there for the past 2 years.
Yep.
And we're looking forward to it. It's a Saturday, and it's going to be a huge event.
Awesome.
Last year, we honored a lot of the frontline workers, the police officer, fire department. We had Lynn Hall, the mayor. We had a doctor. We had long care term nurse. We had Team Rubicon. But we're going to do another honoring like that. Plus, we want to rock it there for all those healthcare workers.
And where will people be able to find out more information once it's available?
The proclamation will come out once I write it and get her down. And then definitely we're gonna work from there on a poster, what we usually do, and invites will be out there, right? And I'm sure we'll be able to have a big gathering by then. I'm not gonna, but yes. So
that's awesome,
March
gentlemen.
26, 2022, we're gonna honor frontliners, healthcare workers, and all that have been so strong within the industry, right?
I love it. Nothing but love for both of you guys.
Yeah.
And for you, and we'll have some Bannock.
Yeah, Raven's Fun Buns. Raven's
Fun
Buns will be there.
That was good.
Yeah.
So, isn't this fitting that you guys have to go because you need to make your
Right
way
to
over to
the
the hospital
6 o'clock.
to do some smudging, to do some drumming?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Nothing but love for both of you gentlemen. Thanks for everything you do in the community. Yeah. Thanks to our executive producer, Selin, who was able to come in here and watch us tonight. Andrew Johnson.
Andrew, woo!
Nice work, buddy. Hit
Peace
the music. Studio 720. Here we go.
Awesome.
Good
Crazy
job,
damn Canadians.